We head to Chicago, Illinois for a WNBA matchup between the Liberty and the Sky. Now, this matchup could have huge implications for the Sky team, who currently sit at 8th in the league and, of course, are trying to make the postseason, while the Liberty are already playoff eligible, but every game is obviously very crucial. That game at 3 p.m. on ESPN2. Welcome to WNBA Hoop Streams presented by Google. Christine Williamson and Terrika Foster-Brasby in the building. Happy weekend. Well, it's the end of the weekend.
It is.
Happy Sunday.
It's been a great weekend.
Yeah.
It's week 1 in college football.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to rep my Spartans. 31-7 win over Central.
University of Miami beat Miami of Ohio.
See?
We were just starting off the college football season swell. And also, obviously, winding down the W season as we head into the playoffs very soon. Okay, so let's just go around the W and talk about some headlines that we're paying attention to, some things that we're paying attention to.
Sure.
Starting with the fact that last week's matchup on Monday was the most watched regular season WNBA game on ESPN2 in 5 years. The Liberty obviously beat the Aces 94-85. But these two teams, the top two teams in the W, is there another team that can possibly stop those two teams?
You're coming with the hard-hitting questions already,
Of course,
Christine.
just off the top.
Off the top. Gosh, that is genuinely a tough question. I have absolutely no idea because every single team in this league has played at such a different level as we get closer down the stretch here that I feel like any team, and then let's be honest, neither one of these teams are undefeated. So clearly they can be stopped. But when they're playing their best basketball, I feel like the only competition they have is with themselves. Right now, you're starting to see that the Las Vegas Aces are starting to remember who they are. I mean, for a while here in the month of August, they've had a little bit of struggle, and part of it has been the fatigue factor. But the other part of it is just simply A'ja Wilson is remembering she is the reigning MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. And so when she steps up and have a big game, it's important. But I think their depth is going to also be a question that we have. Whereas New York, their depth is the reason that they are at an advantageous situation right now with every team that they face. No Sabrina, no problem. Maureen Johannes knows how to step in. She came off the bench on Friday. She started on Friday and gave them 18 points in 30 minutes. And so two different avenues when it comes to, Vegas versus New York. But either way it goes, like whoever is trying to defeat them is going to have to be very big inside and is going to have a bench that can score.
I have a follow-up question because when these two teams first matched up against one another at the beginning of the season, we were like, oh, the Aces are far and above every other team in the league. Do we feel like the Liberty has the Aces number? Like, do they got them on lock?
They've closed the gap.
Okay.
And again, I think the biggest reason that we can say that is because of bench presence, right? Like when you get deeper into the season and you get closer into the playoffs, you're going to need help. You're not going to be able to do it by yourself, right? And so you can see that Becky Hammon knows that. She's noticing that by the more minutes that we're starting to see out of Kirsten Bell. We're starting to see more minutes out of Sydney Colson. We're seeing that she's trying to prep her bench for the grind of the postseason. Whereas New York, again, they have that advantage already. They're one of the better and deeper benches in this league. And I think that's what's going to help propel them and what has really closed the gap with this team between these two.
Yeah, and obviously figuring out chemistry, the beginning of the season versus where they are now. They obviously have figured that thing out. Okay, let's talk about another team that did beat the Aces last week, 78-62, the Mystics. They're healthy, they're clicking. With the win over the Aces, they're 16-18, still sitting at 7th place in a crowded middle of the pack. And Atkins, Elena Delle Donne, Shakira Austin were all in the starting lineup against the Aces, but of course they lost to the Aces on Thursday. Do we think that this healthy Mystics team can make a run in the postseason?
I think Rebecca Lobo summed it up the absolute best. She went on Twitter and said, congrats on finishing 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the WNBA standings. Your reward is playing a healthy Washington Mystics team in the first round. Do you know how excited it was in Entertainment and Sports Arena when the injury report showed up and there was not a single player on it? That is a dangerous combination when you get Elena Delle Donne back, who at the beginning of this season, I think we all thought this team was going to be very much in play for a 4 seed. Shakira Austin started the season extremely well, coming off her sophomore performance, but it got a little rocky when we started to see so many players go down. And so now that you've got EDD and Shakira and Ariel and Christy back, it makes them a true threat. I think it's one thing to kind of turn your season around, but it's totally different when you are dominating the way that you were last week against Minnesota, when you are able to get a win against the Las Vegas Aces, giving them their fifth loss of the season.
Right.
That's important for not only for you to actually physically find your chemistry and your rhythm heading into the postseason, but definitely building your confidence heading into the postseason. So yeah, you need to be worried if you got to play Washington.
Right, and this is exactly where the Mystics want to start playing at that level because, as you mentioned, they're headed into the postseason. Okay, so the ESPN recently surveyed 34 WNBA players, just asking them what are the biggest issues in the WNBA, and check out the results. So travel, other, salary structure, security, visibility, roster spots, those were the top. But as you see, obviously, travel right there. So T, I know one of the biggest things surrounding the league is expansion. Where would you like to see a WNBA franchise?
Can I just say that I truly don't have any idea what they mean by other? Like, is it that many? Like, what?
I know they're over there listing other
for
things.
me, please.
Right,
like,
right.
That is wild. But yeah, so I know recently Kathy Engelbert took a meeting in Denver with some investors there who were interested in starting a franchise there. And it wouldn't be the first time that there's women's basketball professionally in Denver. They had an ABL team there at one point in time. And yeah, it is important, maybe more so for college students and those that are coming in, what roster spots and expansion is going to look like than it is for the women who already have the opportunity to play in this league. But I think the one thing that we have to factor in when it comes to that is the diversity and the growth of the sport in whatever city it is that you pick. So it's no shade to the great fans in the city of Denver. Love that you guys love women's basketball, but I think you do have to consider, how does this grow the sport? What ways does the states and cities that you select, how are they accommodating to the athletes that are going to live there? I know that Memphis at one point was also a city that was mentioned that, you know, people would say, hey, it'd be great to have a basketball team here. But then you also have to think about the politics that surround the state of Tennessee and the area of Memphis. And is it the most accommodating place for the women that play in this league, for the players that play in this league? I love to see Toronto. I think Toronto did a great job with embracing the WNBA this preseason when they had an opportunity to have a preseason game there. So these are the things I just want the league to consider as they're looking for places to expand. Detroit, another one. There was a great basketball culture in Detroit. Philadelphia, I literally just had a friend of mine ask for women's basketball tickets and they lived in Philly. And I was like, sure, you're trying to go to a Liberty game or you want to go to a Mystics game? And they're like, wait, new fan, no nothing. They had no idea that there was no team in Philly. They were like, whoa, Philadelphia's a large city. Like, there's no women's basketball team here. Exactly. So there are new fans who are looking to love this sport and want to know more about the sport and don't have the access in the cities that they live in. And it really is a big disservice.
Poor Philly fan.
I know.
They were really trying to go to a game in their city. Didn't happen. But maybe soon. Okay, let's talk about the race for MVP because we talked a lot about A'ja Wilson. Obviously, she scored 26 points versus the Mystics on Thursday, reaching 800 total points this season. That's the 5th WNBA player ever and the 3rd this season. Stewie, however, averaging 22.8 points, 9.3 rebounds, 3.8 assists. Who do you think will take home MVP this season?
Maybe you didn't mention her in this potential lead in here. I cannot at all discount Alyssa Thomas. I just think that first off, I picked her as my MVP at the beginning of the season before we even before we even saw a game. I was like, this could be AT's year. And then she started doing things that historically no other player in the WNBA has done before. 20 and 21, 20 points, 21 assists. Who does this, right? She's just really someone who doesn't get as much attention because she plays in a smaller market and for various other reasons. But what Alyssa Thomas has been doing this year, she was literally just a week ago 2 rebounds away from notching her 6th triple-double on the season. It's just incredible to me that when we continue to talk about the MVP conversation, that so many people are just continually to leave her out. You can't leave her out. I do think, though, when it comes to how most of the voters will look at it, they are going to look at points.
Right.
She's not averaging the same amount of points that the other two are averaging, but it's all because of the structure of the game in terms of what she's needed to do for her team versus what Stewie and Asia are needed to do for theirs.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a lock for anyone at this point.
Right.
However, you have to keep her in the conversation because she's very much at an opportunity to receive the MVP nod as the other two players are.
Yeah, and you said that at the beginning of the season, like you mentioned, that you had AT as your MVP at the end of the season. Okay, so let's talk about some more awards, shall we? I'm not sure if you chose it. Did you choose a Defensive Player of the Year at the beginning of the season?
I haven't.
Okay, so let's do Defensive Player of the Year first. Who do you have winning that this season?
Yeah, well, this might be interesting, but I still got Asia Wilson and Alyssa Thomas as my top two. I think Asia is the front runner for most people. She's incredible on the defensive end of the ball. She's leading the league in blocks per game. And yeah, Las Vegas has struggled recently on the defensive end, but the Aces are the top defensive rating team in the league. So there's no way you can have this conversation and not keep Asia Wilson in it. And she's the defending Defensive Player of the Year. So she knows how to do this. She ain't new to this. She true to this, right? But again, I also have Alyssa Thomas in this conversation. She's leading the league in rebounds. She's #1 in defensive rebounds with 7.8 rebounds per game. She's top 3 in steals, top 5 overall. Like, there's, again, no way you can have this conversation without her in it. Connecticut has been one of the top defensive teams in this league for many years, so it's not just this year. They've been a defensive juggernaut for several years, and Alyssa Thomas has been that engine to lead them there. So when I think about the two people who are top of mind for me for this award, it's absolutely Asia and AT.
So I love when people choose two people for a one answer award.
I know.
So who do you have having the edge in this matchup?
Right now, the edge to me is Asia.
Okay.
The edge to me is Asia. I am a media voter, so God, I need your help because I got 1 week.
You out a little bit, just
I got
so you
1
can
week.
whittle it down. Exactly.
I got 1 week to figure this out. Ballots are due on Sunday, so I got 1 week to figure this out.
I'm just trying to help you out. Make sure that you just say it so that you can hear yourself say it. So you got Asia having the edge.
I got Asia having the edge by a small margin, but like anything can change between now and Sunday.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Okay, so at the beginning of the season, you had Kurt Miller as your Coach of the Year. Then around the All-Star, you had Stephanie White. Yeah. Are you sticking with Stephanie White as your Coach of the Year?
Absolutely sticking with Stephanie White. When Stephanie White took on the position of head coach, she did not know that she was going to be coaching a team that would not have JJ, that would not have Jasmine Thomas. She did not know, anything that we eventually found out come that January. And even still, losing Brianna Jones in June added an additional layer of adversity to this team. And instead of, cowering to the moment, she actually helped elevate them to the moment. She continues to run her play, continue to run her style of basketball. She figures out who is working well at what moment. She makes adjustments in those moments, and the team has adapted to her. I think that the fact that this team is #3 in the league right now, has been a top team the entire season, and she has really elevated the play of those like Dejanay Carrington. You can see Olivia Nelson-Ododa now starting to play better. This team loves her. They adore her, and she's also doing a great job with her coaching staff. All of her coaching staff are former players, and so it's one of those things where you can really see the joy in that locker room and around what Stephanie White has brought to the Connecticut Sun. So she right now is, for me, the leading candidate for Coach of the Year.
Okay, so you mentioned Dejanay Carrington. You had her as 6th Woman of the Year, also with Dana Evans. Is it still close? Who do you have getting the edge in that matchup? Is it still those two?
So I do still have Dejanay Carrington leading for me for 6th Player of the Year, and I understand that she has missed a couple of games because she's nursing a foot injury. But Dejanay Carrington, I would say her absence even adds to her case as to why she should be 6th Player of the Year. This team looks different when they need that additional energy off the bench, when they need that additional rebounding factor. Her not being able to give it to them over these last few days have been critical. But I would say a sneaky addition to this conversation has to be Maureen Johannes. Come on now, Maureen.
Yeah, she is a bucket.
Maureen is a whole bucket out here. Listen, No Sabrina on Friday, like I said, no problem. She stepped up to fill the role. So that was a few and far between opportunity to get a start. But Maureen Johannes, she's currently averaging 7.5 points per game. She came off the bench during the Commissioner's Cup and got them 18 points in 4 minutes. Like, what she's doing, she's 14 of 21 from 3 heading into Friday's matchup. She is girl, what? How?
Yeah.
How do you do when you're watching her in amazement, and that depth and that added resource of her on the bench gives the Liberty so much added dangerosity, and I made that word up, but we need to put that in the dictionary. Dangerosity. This New York team is just really they're a team that is scary. And I criticize them heavily.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're a team that is scary, and Maureen Johannes is one of the reasons why. So you've got to put her in the conversation for Sixth Player of the Year.
My friend has season tickets to Liberty games, and he sits right on the court. He had an argument with Monica McNutt about how good of a shooter MJ was. So she's obviously proving that fact right now.
She don't play no games.
Exactly. Now it's time to take a look at what fans are searching for, presented by Google. So searches asking how does the WNBA playoffs work spiked plus 250% in the U.S. over the past week. Obviously the playoffs starting on September 13th. But that got us to thinking. So Skylar Diggins-Smith tweeted this, or took to social media, asked the fans what they'd rather see, more regular season games or more playoff games. So let's just talk quickly about the playoff format. 8 of the 12 teams qualify for the playoffs solely based off of their record. East and West Conference does not matter. The first round is a best of 3 series, and the semis and finals move to a best of 5 format. T, what is your take on Skylar's ask to the fans? Do you want to see more regular season games or more playoff games?
Yeah, well, first off, Sky, we miss you, sis. Like, please, whenever you're ready, please come back to the league. We miss you. But I want both. Like, why do I have to choose, right? I really think that what makes the playoff so special is the fact that, especially in the first round, you only really got 2 opportunities to make it happen, and then after that, if it doesn't, then you're done. But I don't think that should come at the expense of shortening the regular season. This 40-game season has really tested a lot of teams. You're starting to see some of the best teams that, don't want to pick on the Aces, but the Aces is definitely one of those teams that started to feel that fatigue factor. You could say the same thing with Connecticut. I mean, they were punished on Friday against the New York Liberty. But at the same time, you look at a team like Washington, for example, these extra games have allowed them to get healthy and start to peak at the right time, right? So I certainly want to continue to see these games increase. I want to see the league continue to grow in that way. But listen, if we could have this first round be like a best of 5,
right,
I'd be okay with that.
Right. So you basically, are you saying that you don't want to shorten the season at the expense of the playoffs?
Yeah.
What if we kept the regular season as it is and then added more games to the playoffs? Which one would you rather have?
I would rather have both. Like, I would rather so I'm saying I would like for us to keep the regular season at a 40-game length.
Right.
But I would also like to see
that's what I'm saying. So you would want to add playoff games.
I would want to add playoff games.
Okay. Keep the season like it is.
Keep the season and add playoff games.
Well, we'll see what happens. Our commissioner, Terrika, wants to see more games.
We're not going to talk about Kathy today.
Exactly. All right, let's play a little game. We're calling it news or noise. I'm going to read some statements to you, and you tell me if they're news, meaning that it's a yes, or if it's noise, meaning that it's a no. So, starting with the first headline, Asia Wilson's 53-point game versus the Dream last month, which tied the single game scoring record, made her a lock. We already know what your MVP was, but did that make her a lock? News or noise? And this doesn't mean your vote.
Okay.
Overall.
So I'm going to say noise.
Okay.
There are still way too many people who are locked on Stewie being the MVP as well, right? So I think it's incredible that she had a 53-point performance because, I mean, come on, sis, you out here tying WNBA historical records. That was an incredible matchup.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a big deal that she scored 53 points in a game with only 1 3-pointer. Girl, you wildin'. However, I don't think it made her a lock for MVP. I think there are people who are still very much conflicted on who gets that award.
Okay. I'm still so mad. I know there was like seconds left in the game, but I'm still so mad that she didn't just stay in
just like
to the
one
end of the
extra
game,
point.
just in case she could get 50 24.
Well, wait, she was 20 from 21 from the free throw line. So imagine had she just hit that one free throw.
True.
See?
It's all her fault. Gotta do better. Okay, headline number 2. Sabrina Ionescu is the best player on the Liberty's roster. News or noise? Now, just keep in mind she's the first player in W history to record 600 rebounds and 600 assists through her first 4 WNBA seasons.
It's whoever wrote
Obviously,
this
Stewie's
question.
on the team.
Brianna Stewart is on the team. Jonquil Jones is on the team. And if you looked at the last matchup, Benijah Laney is also on the team. So I think this is noise. She's not the best player on the New York Liberty roster, but my goodness, is she one of the best players on their roster. Sabrina has really stepped up her game this year. Now, I've criticized her defensively. So on the defensive side of the ball, I still think that there are ways that she can improve and get better. But offensively, the girl can shoot the lights out of the gym. And she's only 3 3-pointers away from tying and surpassing Diana Taurasi for the most threes in a season. I believe it's 121 and she has 119. So at the end of the day, girl, continue to ball out, Sabrina, but I can't say you the best.
Okay, this is my favorite thing to do. Make T's Twitter mentions possibly blow up.
She
Who
loves
is the best player on the Liberty team?
Oh, I can't stand you, Christian. I think right now the best player on the team is Jonquil Jones.
Okay, see? Tweet it. Or exit. Sorry. Okay, headline number 3. A healthy Elena Delle Donne will lead the Mystics to an upset of one of the East's top 2 teams, which of course is the Liberty and the Sun. News or noise?
This is news.
Okay.
I think this is news. I think this is a big deal because I think it can happen. Now, what I love about playing teams in a series is you get to make adjustments, right? You get to see where you can do and where you can make improvements. And so they had a big game where they were able to defeat Las Vegas just last week, and then they played each other 2 days later, and Las Vegas was able to make the adjustments and get the better of them, right? So I think this is news. I think they are good enough to beat one of the top 2 teams in this league, just given the preparation that goes into the playoffs and have it. Listen, if you listened to me, Kathy, and had the first round 5 games, we'd have I think that would be an opportunity for them to go the full distance. So, news.
See, Commissioner T. Headline number 4. Obviously, the Mercury missing the playoffs for the first time since 2012. Is it time for a youth movement for the Mercury? Is that news or noise?
Absolutely news. Absolutely news. Michaela Onyenwere is someone who comes to mind for me. She, was traded to this team in the offseason, coming from New York, 2021 Rookie of the Year. And when she had opportunities to really play and really get in there, and she started the last few weeks, she is someone who shows me that a youth movement is necessary. We love to see the greats in our game. So we love to see DT. We love to see it. But at some point, it's time to think about what life would be like once those players are no longer playing. Mariah Jefferson is someone else who I think has had an incredible season with them, despite that they did not have as much success as I believe that they hoped to have. So I agree that this is news. It is time to revamp and rethink about what that Phoenix Mercury roster needs to look like moving forward.
Yeah, in the last 2 seasons, obviously, they've dealt with a lot on the court and off the court. So hopefully they're able to kind of figure things out a little bit as they move forward into next season and focus on that during this offseason. Okay. Next headline. Aaliyah Boston has no real competition for Rookie of the Year. Is that news or noise?
I love the wordplay here. No real competition.
There might be a little bit, but it's not real.
I mean, it's the smallest details. I think this is noise because no, it's not a big deal. She has Rookie of the Year on lock. I think the voters. There was so much hype around Aaliyah Boston coming into the WNBA, and she has absolutely lived up to that and then some. She's continuing to break records in the league. She's already broken records for the Fever organization. She's already being compared to being a game-changing player in the likes of Tamika Catchings and how she was so game-changing for the Fever. I love to see her and Alyssa Smith with the high-low action when Alyssa's healthy. So, yes, she is Rookie of the Year. Up until Friday, this Indiana team was in position for a playoff spot. When's the last time we've been able to look at the Fever this late in the season and say, hey, they're still in it? So that's noise.
I do want to ask you though, because going into the season, obviously Aaliyah Boston, everybody is paying attention to her as a rookie, but was there another player that you thought maybe could come out and have a great rookie season that maybe didn't kind of keep up to those
I
expectations.
actually had high hopes for Diamond Miller, and I still have high hopes for her. Just because she will most likely end up with the Rookie of the Year award, Aaliyah Boston, doesn't mean that there aren't qualifying rookies for the all-rookie team. Diamond Miller is someone who's absolutely on that for me. Jordan Horston, gosh, I really have loved to see her grow in Seattle, so she's a fan favorite. She's a favorite for me. And Zaya Cook, too.
Yeah.
I think Zaya Cook absolutely has stepped up in LA when necessary, when she's been given the opportunities, and she's got plenty of them because they dealt with some injuries very early on throughout this season as well. So definitely would give them all rookie, not all rookie honor, rookie team honors.
But Aaliyah Boston
to me is going to walk away with the award.
Okay, final headline. If the Aces do not win the championship, it will be a failed season, news or noise?
I'm going to say news, although I don't personally believe that it would be a failed season, but I'm going to say news because I absolutely believe the headlines will make it seem like it is for them. You started off this season practically invincible. You set a record with the most wins and as quickly as you did it in the WNBA. You guys have dominated almost every team that you faced, and to not walk away with a championship, for most people, they would feel like you didn't finish the job.
Right.
I think that this team would probably feel like they didn't finish the job. Although, arguably you can say any team that doesn't win a championship feels like they didn't finish the job. But yeah, I think the headlines will be that this is a failed season for Vegas if they don't go back-to-back, given how they started and for the most part how they've carried themselves throughout the season.
Obviously, they set the WNBA record for most wins this season with 30 games. Do you feel like even though they have done that, they have done enough to be able to say that this season was a good, like it's lived up to the expectations?
I would say that there were things that happened this season that I don't think was anticipated. I don't think it was anticipated that Raquana Williams wouldn't be playing.
Right.
I don't think it was anticipated that Candace Parker would be hurt. And so because of those things, and again, those are things that every team has to deal with injuries, or every team has to deal with the curveball that comes within the season. So I think those things threw an even bigger wrench in the plans of Las Vegas. However, I think that they would say to themselves, like, we didn't get it done. Like
that makes sense.
We didn't do what we set out to do. We didn't get it done, and we were put in a position to do just that. So I do feel like they would say that. I don't feel that way. I don't think it was a failed season for them.
Okay. Obviously, too, the fact that they have won so many games, I feel like the losses actually set you up better for the playoffs because you realize the things that you need to correct, and also you realize that you're not immortal when it comes to playing in the W.
It's all about how you respond.
Take over. Yeah, exactly. Got to correct those mistakes. Okay, let's take a look at this matchup that we're getting ready for today. You're watching WNBA Hoop Streams presented by Google. Liberty taking on the Sky at the top of the hour. So the Liberty are on a 5-game win streak. What do the Sky need to do today in order to try to snap that?
Stop Breanna Stewart. Good luck with it.
Seems easy enough.
Just an easy ask, Stop Breanna Stewart. Try to slow down. I don't know. I haven't seen the pregame report, so I don't know if Sabrina is going to start today or not. She didn't play again on Friday, and that was just a precautionary situation that Sandy Brondello was like, hey, but if she is playing, then yeah, you need to try to keep her far away from opportunities to shoot any shots on the perimeter as possible, and that too is an easy task. In their last matchup, I think that is going to be more indicative of what it'll look like today, and Stewie basically took over the game. So they're going to need a big play from Kalia Copper. She was someone who did not have the best of games in their last matchup, although New York did take an L to this team earlier in the season. Very close down the stretch. Chicago was down 19 points and were able to rally back for an 86-82 victory. So they have the confidence that they can beat them. But that right there, Kalia Copper, she is going to have to be the one to lead this team if they're looking to do that again.
Let's talk about the Sky for a little bit, because obviously they won the WNBA championship in 2021, and it feels like we haven't been talking to them as much because they haven't been nearly as good as they were that season. Would you say that the quote, sky is falling?
Oh, that's a great cliche. I didn't come up with that. I would say that generally speaking, yeah, it looks very different in Chicago now than it did in 2021. It looks different in Chicago now than it did last season in 2022. But I would also say that given all that they've been through, losing their coach, losing some of their best player, revamped roster, to have bright spots with Courtney Williams, to have Kalia Copper still doing what she does, Dana Evans coming off the bench, and Coach Emre did for a beginning stretch of his new time as head coach, lead them in the right way. And they're still not technically out, like they're still
they're
fighting.
they're
right there.
Yeah.
So I think given their adversity, they've done pretty darn well handling themselves. Got to give them credit for that.
Definitely would be very important to win this one. Who do you have winning this one?
I have New York winning this one. I'm sorry, Chicago. No shade.
I feel like you never want to go against New York anymore after
I know, because y'all been making me feel real stupid lately. So I got a lot of love in New York. I was in New York on Friday, and the fans showed me so much love.
Okay, good, because you haven't been showing them love all season, but I love to see that for you doing it so far. All right, thank you guys for watching WNBA Hoop Streams presented by Google. If you are watching on the ESPN app, go on and authenticate right here. You can watch the game right here. Otherwise, it's on ESPN2. Have fun. We'll see you guys next time.